This is Alex Mercer, still transmitting from what's left of the Northern Ridge Observatory. If this signal reaches you, if anyone is still out there, know that I'm doing everything I can to keep this frequency alive. It's strange. 3 years after the war, after the firestorms, after the long night of ash, the world is finally bright enough to see. But what we're seeing is nothing like the world we remember. Radiation levels. They're rising. Not evenly, not predictably, but in violent pulses. Like the Earth itself is exhaling in sharp, radioactive breaths. Places that were safe last month now bite the skin with invisible teeth. Highways glow faintly at dawn. Not from headlights or sunrise, but from the soil itself breathing light back into the sky. People used to fear the darkness of nuclear winter. Now we fear the light. Fields that should be dead, barren, silent, instead shimmer with this eerie luminescence. At night, the ground ripples with colors, violet, blue, green, like the northern lights decided to sink into the earth. I stepped into one of those fields 3 nights ago, hoping the glow was just some kind of harmless bioluminescence. It wasn't. Every blade of mutated grass throbbed softly under my boots, as if responding to my presence. When I crouched, when I reached out, something I probably shouldn't have done, the grass leaned toward me, bending with deliberate slowness, brushing against my glove like it was curious. Alive in a way plants shouldn't be. And then there are the rivers. Water no longer flows the way it used to. Some streams ripple with swirling colors, like oil floating on the surface, but thicker, deeper, almost beautiful until you realize the reflections aren't natural. The ripples move against the current. The colors shift even when the wind is still. Fishermen, what few are left, throw nets and pull up nothing but bones of creatures that don't match anything in our books. Yesterday, I watched a river boil in the cold of morning for only 6 seconds before calming again. No heat, no sound, just a brief, violent churn, and then stillness. Nature has become unpredictable, unexplainable, and uncaring. The animals, that's the part no one wants to talk about. Some survivors insist they've seen deer with glowing veins, like living lanterns drifting through forests made of shadows and ash. Others claim wolves are running in tighter formations than ever, moving with a precision that feels rehearsed. People whisper about birds flying in perfect synchronized spirals, hundreds at a time, like they're operating under one mind. But for every beautiful mutation, there is something darker. A fox, if it was a fox, walked right past me near an irradiated ridge. Its bones bent strangely when it moved, legs too long, pupils too wide. It stopped, tilted its head, and for a moment, it felt like it was studying me, deciding something. And without fear, without caution, it stepped into a radiation spike that would have killed a human in minutes. It didn't even flinch. And it's not just the mutations, it's the behavior, the intelligence. Groups of animals we thought were gone are returning, but with patterns we don't recognize. There's a rhythm to the new world, a pulse, something orchestrated. Some survivors say the Earth is healing, adapting, evolving with terrifying speed. Others believe nature is rejecting us, rewriting itself into something that no longer includes humanity. 2 nights ago, I climbed the cliff overlooking the lower valley. It used to be a quiet place even after the war, dry, empty, safe. But now the valley glows. Not blindingly, more like a faint, otherworldly haze that hangs in the air like morning fog. I saw shapes moving below, glowing figures roaming the land like spirits. They drifted through the grass, leaving trails of light that faded slowly, like comet tails dragged across the ground. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen since the world ended, and it was the most terrifying. I couldn't understand whether I was witnessing life thriving or mutating beyond recognition. I keep thinking about something a biologist told me months ago, before his shelter collapsed. He said radiation is chaos, but life is adaptation. He believed that nature was never going to die. It was going to change violently and rapidly until it found new forms to survive. I didn't believe him then. I thought the world was dying. But now I see he might have been right. And the question we have to face is whether humanity has a place in this new world at all. If you're listening, please, be careful. Trust no safe zone, no clear river, no still forest. The land is shifting under our feet, rewriting itself in real time. Every step is a gamble. Every breath of air carries a risk. And every night, when the world glows quietly in the dark, remember, this is not the Earth we inherited. This is the Earth becoming something new, something we don't understand, something we might not survive. This is Alex Mercer, speaking into the ash-bitten airwaves, hoping my voice reaches someone out there still holding on. Tonight, I want to talk about something delicate, something that feels like it lives between miracle and nightmare, something the survivors have started calling the forgotten children. These are the little ones born during the longest nights of the nuclear winter, when the world was dark for weeks at a time, and the only lullabies were the distant rumble of collapsing cities and the heartbeat of a dying planet. They were shaped not by the world we lost, but by the new one. This strange, wounded Earth stitched together with radiation and silence. And because of that, these children, they are not like us, not entirely. The moment you see one, you understand why people whisper. They grow fast, too fast. Their small bodies adapt with uncanny ease to the poisoned air and shifting climates. Their eyes are the first thing everyone notices, pupils wide, liquid, sensitive, reacting instantly to even the faintest glimmer of light. They watch the glowing skies with a steady, unnerving calm, as if they've lived through all this before. They see in the dark better than most adults can see at noon. They don't blink at the sudden bursts of toxic sunlight when the clouds split open. And they don't cry, almost ever. They simply observe quietly, absorbing the world, as if they can hear something we've gone deaf to. Some of these children walk through mild radiation zones like it's nothing. Adults break into coughs, skin prickling, eyes tearing up, while the children stroll through with steady steps, their small boots crunching on contaminated soil like it's soft sand. Others tilt their heads in the middle of conversation, listening to frequencies no one else can hear, the hum of the irradiated winds, the subtle pulse of damaged power lines buried under rubble, the strange whispering tones carried through the scorched air. They hear the world, quite literally, in a way adults never could. Communities don't know what to make of them. In some settlements, these children are treated as gifts from a newly evolving Earth, blessed beings shaped by chaos into something resilient and extraordinary. Mothers decorate their hair with glowing fibers of mutated plants, believing it protects their fragile bodies. Elders claim these children are the first signs of life fighting back, adapting, refusing to die. But in other places, fear wraps its fingers tighter than hope ever could. I've seen whole towns go quiet when one of these children walks by, as if the mere sight of their widened pupils is enough to invite bad luck. I've heard of villages that keep them hidden, quarantined, believing they carry something dangerous, something not meant for human eyes. Adults whisper to each other in the corners of half-broken rooms. Are these children our evolution? Or the earth warning us that our time is almost over? And those whispers sink deep. They shape how people look at the next generation, with awe, with suspicion, with trembling hands unsure whether to reach out or pull away. A few weeks ago, I met a girl named Lyra, barely 5 years old, but there was something ancient in the way she carried herself, like an old soul wearing a child's frame. She stood barefoot on irradiated ground, the stones warm with leftover heat. She didn't flinch. Her eyes shimmered with a soft blue glow, reflecting the eerie luminescence of the sky. When I approached her, she didn't hide behind anyone. Instead, she studied me, studied the way my shoulders slumped from exhaustion, the way my breath caught in my throat. Then she asked me, with a voice far too calm for her age, "Why do adults still fear the sky?" I opened my mouth to answer, but the words lodged in my throat. How do you explain fear to someone who has never known the luxury of ignorance? She went on to tell me that she can hear when the storms shift, that there's a low vibration, like the earth humming a warning through her bones. She said she can feel when the toxic sunbursts are about to break through the ash clouds. She said it simply, with no pride, no fear, just understanding. Like she was telling me the color of a flower, like she was born knowing. And then she took my hand. Her small fingers were warm, far warmer than the cold wind sliding across the wasteland. And in that moment, looking into her glowing eyes, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Not hope, not fear, something in between, something like recognition, as if she knew something none of us adults could comprehend. Something about the earth's heartbeat, its pain, its transformation, as if she belonged to this new world in a way we never will. These children walk with an eerie grace through our broken landscape. They navigate the ruins not with caution, but with familiarity, as if the collapsed buildings, the shimmering radiation streams, the mutated plants were all pieces of a puzzle they instinctively understand. They are at home in the world that terrifies us. And sometimes, when they pause, listening to a sound only they can hear, they smile, a small, serene smile. That smile chills me more deeply than any storm or flare, because it tells me they are not afraid of what the earth is becoming. They are aligned with it. Maybe they aren't the remnants of humanity. Maybe they are the beginning of what comes next. Maybe we are the ones who no longer belong. I think about that often, especially on nights like this, when the sky glows faintly and the world feels like it's holding its breath. I wonder if our job now is not to remake the world in our image, but to guide these children who already belong to it, to protect them, even if we can't fully understand them, to give them the chance to shape a future we won't live long enough to see. If you're hearing this broadcast, whether you're caring for one of these children or hiding them out of fear, remember this. They are not curses. They are not anomalies. They are the fragile bridge between what was lost and what might still be saved. This is Alex Mercer, signing off. Hold your children close, even the strange ones, even the glowing ones, especially them, because they are the only thing this broken earth hasn't given up on. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting again from the ruins of Tower Station 9. If you can hear me, if the static hasn't swallowed my voice completely, then you're tuned into one of the last living signals on this fractured earth. Tonight, I want to talk about something that's been haunting just about every survivor I've met. Something that slips through the cracks of silence and digs its fingers into the places we try not to think about. The radios, or more specifically, The voices that have started coming through them. Voices that shouldn't be there. Voices that don't belong to the living, yet sound so painfully familiar you'd swear they're sitting right beside you. 3 years after the war, every expert alive or dead agreed that radio frequencies should be empty by now. The towers collapsed, the grids burned out, the satellites drifted into cold, lifeless orbits. Silence was supposed to be the only thing left. But then, about 2 months ago, something changed. Survivors started reporting transmissions, soft, broken, half-whispers drifting in between the static. At first, no one believed it. People assumed it was just interference from decaying military equipment, or echoes bouncing off atmospheric radiation clouds. But then the whispers grew clearer, more intentional, and more personal. Voices began reciting memories, not warnings, not weather, memories, birthdays, childhood stories, laughs that didn't belong in this world anymore. Some broadcasts sound like old news anchors reading headlines from years before the war. Only the words twist halfway through, turning into fragments of conversations nobody ever had. Others whisper coordinates to cities that don't exist anymore, places swallowed by craters or buried in ash storms. More unsettling still, some broadcasts start counting down from random numbers. They never reach zero. They never explain why they're counting. They just stop, suddenly, as if something cut them short or swallowed the speaker whole. But the worst thing, the thing that keeps survivors awake at night, sitting around rusted radios with hands trembling over tuning dials, is that some of the voices are familiar. Terrifyingly, heartbreakingly familiar. A sister lost during the first winter, calling your name like she's standing outside your shelter. A commander who vanished during the evacuation, giving quiet orders like the war never ended. A friend you buried. A lover you watched fade away. Their voices leak through the static with eerie clarity, repeating phrases they never said in life, twisting memories in ways that make the hair on your neck stand upright. I spoke with a man last week, Elias, from the Southern Rail Colony. He swore he heard his daughter's voice calling out to him across Channel 4, the same daughter who died in his arms 2 years ago. He said she was singing the lullaby he used to hum to her. But the melody was wrong, stretched too thin, like something else was trying to remember the tune but didn't quite know how. Her voice asked him to follow her, asked him to come to coordinates that pointed directly to a lake now toxic enough to strip flesh from bone. Elias cried while telling me the story. Not because he believed the voice was real, but because a part of him desperately wished it was. That's the thing, isn't it? These signals, whatever they are, play on the parts of us that the war didn't kill. The hope, the grief, the desperate need to believe someone survived. Some people think the transmissions come from old military bunkers, deep enough to avoid the blasts, autonomous enough to keep running without humans, trying to reach out with corrupted archives. Others say it's leftover AIs looping broken data, assembling words from fragments of destroyed networks. But there's another theory, one that people only whisper when the nights are long and the winds carry that strange metallic hum. The theory that these voices aren't coming from machines or humans, but from something else entirely. Something lurking in the radiation-soaked atmosphere. Something learning. Something practicing speech using our memories as its raw material. Last night, I heard a voice too. A voice I haven't heard since before the world ended. My brother. He died 3 years ago in the Eastern fires. But there he was, whispering through my radio as if he was right behind me, breathing against my neck. He said my name, slowly, carefully, like he was tasting the word. And then he said something he never once said in life. He said, "Come home, Alex." But the way he said it, the way the sentence bent and cracked halfway through, it wasn't him. It couldn't be. It was like hearing someone imitate him through a cracked mask. I don't remember switching the radio off. I just remember shaking for a long time after. These voices, they're tearing people apart. Not with violence, but with longing. Survivors gather around radios at night like ancient tribes gathering around fires. Not for warmth. There's no warmth left in these machines. But for connection. For the chance that maybe, just maybe, someone they lost is still out there calling back. And even when the voices twist into something uncanny, people don't walk away. They keep listening. Because silence hurts more than ghosts. If you're hearing this broadcast, I don't know what your radios have been telling you. Maybe you've heard strangers. Maybe you've heard loved ones. Maybe you've heard nothing at all. And God, I hope you're one of the lucky ones. But whatever you hear, remember this. The dead don't speak through wires. Not in any world we once understood. Something else is speaking. Something hidden in the static. Something mimicking the living and the dead alike. This is Alex Mercer, signing off before my own radio starts whispering again. Stay cautious. Stay grounded. And no matter how familiar the voice sounds, don't follow it into the dark. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting from the edge of the Eastern Reclamation Zone. Though reclamation might not be the right word anymore. Not for what I've seen today. I want to talk about the forests, the new forests that have begun to rise across the scarred continents. People used to think the world would take centuries to heal. But nature never waits for permission. It grows when it wants to grow. And now it's growing faster than anything we've ever documented. But this isn't the return of the forests we lost. No. This is something different. Something ancient and newborn all at once. A wilderness shaped by radiation, silence, and the desperate will of the earth to rebuild, even if humanity isn't part of the blueprint anymore. The first time you step into one of these forests, the air itself feels unreal. Heavy, warm, charged with something electric, almost alive. Trees tower overhead, growing in twisted spirals or perfect symmetrical patterns, as if they've been sculpted rather than grown. Their trunks split into ridges that glow faintly in the dark, soft blue light pulsing through the bark like veins beneath skin. When night falls, the entire forest becomes a dimly lit cathedral, shadows swaying like living spirits and roots crawling across the ground with unnatural intent. I've watched roots snap highways in half, tearing through old asphalt like it was wet paper. These forests aren't reclaiming the land. They're consuming it, integrating it, wearing humanity's ruins like bones in their foundation. But the light is what stuns you first. The sap glows, not with fire, not with heat, but with a cold luminescence that drips like liquid moonlight. If you touch it, and I don't recommend it, it clings to your skin, humming faintly, warm at first, then cold enough to numb. It's beautiful, too beautiful, the kind of beauty that warns you to stay back even as it draws you forward. And it's not just the trees, the fungi, God, the fungi grow like lanterns along fallen logs and shattered concrete walls, their soft green and violet halos lighting the ground in eerie trails. Some survivors use them as path markers, placing them gently along routes like candles, guiding travelers through the darkness. But touch the wrong species, and it burns. Not like fire, like acid wrapped in frost. As for the sounds, well, you've never heard anything like it. The wind doesn't just move through the leaves, it plays them. Hollow stems resonate like flutes, producing long, haunting tones that drift in and out of harmony. Some people say the forests whisper. Others swear they're speaking, longing, warning, remembering. And the birds, if you can still call them birds, sing in pitches that feel almost engineered. Songs too perfect, too synchronized, too mathematically precise to belong to nature as we knew it. Their melodies rise and fall with a cold clarity that tugs at the back of your mind, like memories you never lived trying to surface. There's something unsettling about music that flawless. It feels intentional. I walked deeper into the forest earlier today. Stupid, I know, but I had to see what others had described. Trees that react when you approach them. The stories were true. Some plants extend their spines slowly, like blooming flowers made of bone, as if warning you not to step closer. Others retract, curling inward, hiding their luminous cores from strangers. I brushed past a vine once, one single accidental touch, and the entire plant recoiled violently, shriveling until it was nothing but a trembling knot of blue tendrils. It didn't attack. It didn't strike back. It just reacted, like an animal afraid of being harmed. People used to think plants were passive, quiet, dim, but not here, not anymore. These forests feel alert, watchful, as if the very soil has a pulse, beating in time with the slow glow of the trees. And when you stand still long enough for the wind to die and the forest to breathe, you can feel it watching. Not with eyes, with existence, with presence. I won't lie, it's terrifying, but it is also awe-inspiring. This is the first real sign that the earth is healing. Not in the way we hoped, not in the gentle blooming of meadow flowers or the slow return of harmless wildlife, but in a fierce, unstoppable surge of new life forged in radiation and desperation. Life that doesn't need us. Life that might prefer we keep our distance. And maybe this is what scares us most. The realization that the earth is healing without us. And perhaps, if we don't learn respect, the earth is healing against us. Tonight, as I speak to you, the forest glows outside my shelter like a sea of bioluminescent waves, shifting with every whisper of wind. It's beautiful. It's deadly. It's fragile and monstrous and sacred. For the first time since the war, I feel something like humility. A reminder that we were never masters of this planet, just temporary guests. And the host is rebuilding the house in ways we may not recognize. This is Alex Mercer, signing off. If you travel through the forests, walk lightly, listen carefully, and remember that you're stepping into a world that survived without you and might not welcome your return. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting from a world that once knew open seas, rolling waves, and salt-heavy breezes, but now stands silent under a shell of unbroken ice. 3 years after the war, nuclear winter dragged temperatures down farther than any scientist predicted. Even though the skies have begun to clear, the oceans haven't remembered how to move yet. Entire coastlines remain locked behind translucent walls of frozen water, harbors sealed mid-motion, as if the sea itself was caught in a moment of shock and never resumed breathing. When you walk along the edges, you can still see the waves, curved, foaming, frozen in perpetual collapse. Ships that once carried thousands now sit immobilized, pale shapes suspended inside the ice like prehistoric insects trapped in amber, their hulls distorted and magnified by layers of frost. Everything looks preserved, untouched, but there is nothing alive about it. Just memory, cold, quiet memory. But beneath that ice, that's where the world has started whispering again. When the sun dips low and the cold deepens, you can see shadows drifting under the frozen surface, slow, uncertain, almost hesitant. Creatures we thought lost forever are returning from the trenches, reshaped by radiation, by isolation, by whatever strange alchemy unfolds in the crushing darkness below. I've seen fish glowing softly like drowned constellations, leaving trails of pale light as they move. I've seen silhouettes of massive forms, too big to identify, gliding with deliberate grace, disturbing the stillness in ways that make you realize the ocean is not dead. It's waiting, changing, becoming something new. The ice above is only a temporary barrier, a thin ceiling between us and a world rewriting itself in silence. For survivors, these frozen oceans are more than a spectacle. They're lifelines. People strap sleds to their backs and cross these plains like ancient explorers, pulling supplies scavenged from shipwrecks once unreachable. The ice serves as a bridge across history, letting us walk where waves once roared. I've crossed those plains myself. At first it feels solid, like walking on stone, but then you hear it, the deep echoing groan of shifting ice, a sound that rumbles through your bones and reminds you how fragile this new world really is. Every step becomes a prayer. Every mile feels borrowed. Sometimes you hear cracks spiderwebbing beneath your feet, thin fractures racing outward like lightning trapped below the surface. You move quickly then, whispering promises to the ocean, hoping it stays asleep just a little longer. And yet, despite the danger, there is a beauty out there that words barely reach. At night, the horizon glows faintly where the moonlight spreads across crystal-smooth ice, turning the world into a sheet of silver. The cold air carries nothing, not wind, not waves, not birds, just the immeasurable emptiness of a world thinking deeply. The silence is so complete that your breath becomes the loudest sound, your heartbeat a drum echoing inside your own body. In those moments, staring out across an ocean frozen into stillness, you feel the weight of everything humanity lost, and everything the world is quietly fighting to rebuild. It's a melancholy beauty, one that doesn't comfort you but doesn't push you away either. It simply exists, patient and ancient, reminding you that life endures even in the harshest corners of creation. People used to say the ocean was alive because it moved, because it roared, because it carried storms and tides and the restless pulse of the world. But standing here now, looking over this frozen expanse, I think the ocean is just as alive in its silence, maybe more so. Beneath the ice, life has adapted, fought, survived. It glows in the darkness like a secret refusing to die. And up here on the surface, we survivors do the same, crossing the plains, scavenging the past, listening to the deep groans of ice that could swallow us whole, yet trusting that some part of the world still wants us to keep going. This is Alex Mercer, signing off for tonight. If you travel across the frozen oceans, move with respect, listen to the silence, and remember, even in stillness, the world is alive, quietly humming with the promise of survival. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting on the dim edge of dawn, or what passes for dawn in this fractured world. 3 years after the war, the sun is no longer the gentle guardian humanity once trusted. It doesn't rise. It leaks through the ash clouds in uneven shards, flickering like a dying lantern fighting against suffocation. The sky remains bruised with permanent gray, but every so often, the layers thin just enough for sunlight to stab through in sharp, concentrated beams. When that happens, the world changes instantly. Colors brighten unnaturally, Shadows sharpen into knife-like lines, and the air itself seems to vibrate. It's beautiful in a way, like watching a forgotten god try to reach through a shattered sky. But beauty means nothing when the light burns everything it touches. The sun used to feed the earth. Now it tests it, scorches it, reminds us that even hope can hurt. When one of those beams hits the ground, the effects are immediate and terrifying. Crops that survived the cold shrivel within minutes, curling into brittle husks as though the light were sucking the life straight out of them. Metal surfaces spark faintly, crackling with heat as if struck by invisible lightning. I've seen entire car roofs scorch, blister, and then collapse inward, melted like cheap plastic. Even the soil seems to hiss under the intensity. Tiny pockets of steam rising in thin, ghost-like tendrils. Animals learned faster than we did. Birds no longer soar during daylight. They hide deep in the cracks of collapsed buildings, or in burrows dug hurriedly beneath roots that once reached for the sun. Stray dogs slink through alley shadows, their instincts sharper than our science, knowing when to vanish moments before the light intensifies. Humanity used to be at the top. Now we follow the creatures that once followed us. Life now runs on a new rhythm, a reluctant choreography shaped by fear and necessity. We work during the dim hours, when the sky holds just enough light to see but not enough to kill. People farm under clouded mornings, repair shelters during fog-thick afternoons, and ration their movements carefully. Every settlement has a watchman whose only job is to study the sky. When the clouds shift too quickly, when the gray thins too much, when the horizon brightens even slightly, they ring alarms that echo across ruined towns. Light burst incoming. At that signal, everyone drops what they're doing and runs for shade, any shade. Under metal sheets, under crumbling stairwells, inside repurposed drainage pipes. There is no shame in sprinting from the light. Only wisdom. Those who hesitate, don't hesitate again. The strangest part is how the sunlight behaves, almost as if it has moods. Sometimes it floods the world with soft, golden warmth that reminds survivors of old summers. In those moments, people step outside and tilt their faces toward the sky, their eyes closed, savoring the fragile gift. Children laugh, gardens breathe. The world feels almost normal, but the moment the sun sharpens, when the color shifts from gold to white, and the beams condense like magnifying lenses, the air fills with a quiet, collective dread. People whisper prayers without thinking, old ones and new ones alike. Not prayers for miracles, prayers for consistency, for mercy, for a sun that doesn't change its mind halfway through the day. Hope becomes something measured carefully, the way we used to measure radiation exposure. Brief, precious, dangerous. And yet, in this fractured sunlight, humanity has adapted in ways that feel almost defiant. Farmers use reflective cloth to redirect safe light toward crops. Wanderers paint themselves with ash to diffuse exposure. Some communities build homes underground with skylights covered in filters scavenged from old welding masks. We've become a species of shadows, moving with them, hiding within them, shaping our lives around the fragile dance between darkness and light. The sun is no longer our ally. It's a reminder that the world is still recovering, still unstable, still capable of harming us even as it tries to heal. But every time the light softens and the world glows warm instead of burning, we remember something important. Hope doesn't need to be safe. It just needs to survive. This is Alex Mercer, signing off until the next dim hour. Stay sheltered, stay aware, and if the sunlight breaks through, look carefully, Sometimes even broken things can be beautiful. But beauty can never be trusted in a world still learning how to forgive us. This is Alex Mercer, coming to you from the edges of what people now call the Scavenger cities, those sprawling, patched-together settlements rising from the bones of the world we once knew. 3 years after the war, nature has begun pulling apart the ruins, but humanity, stubborn as ever, has woven itself into the wreckage instead of abandoning it. The skeletons of skyscrapers stand like rusted monuments, but survivors have begun filling them with life again. Steel beams that once held up luxury offices now support makeshift homes clad in scavenged sheet metal and plastic tarps. Shattered windows are replaced with wired-together solar screens, shielding families from the broken sunlight. Everywhere you look, something old has been reshaped into something fiercely new. Broken billboards turned into defensive walls, overturned buses used as greenhouses, highway signs reforged into water collectors. The ruins don't feel dead anymore. They feel repurposed, inhabited, stubbornly alive. Beneath the streets, old subway tunnels have become arteries of the new world. Trade hubs filled with flickering lanterns, handmade stalls, and voices from all across the fractured land. People barter for seeds, for clean water tablets, for scavenged wiring or half-functional radios. Some trade stories, some trade warnings, some trade maps scribbled on scraps of cardboard showing which buildings are stable, and which ones hide dangerous radiation pockets waiting like invisible landmines. The tunnels are buzzing, chaotic, and warm, but they're also places where old fears linger. Every echo makes you wonder if it's footsteps, dripping pipes, or something worse. Every shadow reminds you that safety here is temporary, borrowed from a world that hasn't decided whether it wants to keep us. Rebuilding civilization, even in this humble, improvised form, has brought back old habits that survived the apocalypse better than any infrastructure. Disputes over food supplies flare up weekly, some just arguments, others turning violent. Territory lines shift daily as families and factions claim or lose control of rooftops, tunnels, or radiation-free streets. And then there are the factions themselves, each with their own vision of what humanity's future should look like. One group believes in rigid order, strict rules, assigned roles, rationing, and walls built high enough to keep chaos out. Another side champions freedom. No leaders, no rules, no rebuilding, just living with the land as it continues to change. And then there are the rewilders, who believe humanity has already had its chance and now must make space for the earth to reclaim itself. They plant mutated trees in ruins, encourage wildlife to return, and resist any effort to restore old world technology. Each faction thinks it's saving the future. Each one is terrified the others will destroy it again. The scavenger cities pulse with life, danger, and something that feels almost like hope. But it's a fragile, trembling hope constantly weighed down by memory. Every structure we build is a reminder of a world that once excelled at constructing and destroying in equal measure. Every argument, every alliance, every negotiation carries a moral heaviness we can't shake. We're trying to rebuild a world on top of one that destroyed itself. And the question lingers in every conversation, in every uneasy glance. Are we building something better, or simply rebuilding the mistakes that burned us the first time? It's a thought that settles in your chest like dust, hard to breathe around, but impossible to ignore. Still, there are moments that make it all feel worth it. A child laughing beneath a canopy of salvaged tarps, a hydroponic garden blooming in an abandoned parking structure, A community meal shared in a subway station lit by glowing mushrooms instead of dead fluorescents. These moments are small, fleeting, but they carry the weight of everything humanity is fighting for. We're learning, slowly, painfully, to rebuild with intention, with awareness, with humility. The scavenger cities may be stitched together from rust and rubble, but they're built from something stronger than steel. The refusal to give up. The refusal to let the world end here. This is Alex Mercer, signing off beneath a patchwork skyline. If you wander into a scavenger city, move with kindness, respect the ruins, respect each other, and remember, we are rebuilding not just a world, but the people we hope to become. This is Alex Mercer, coming to you from the outskirts of the scavenger cities, where the winds carry more than dust. 3 years after the bombs fell, the air itself has become a storyteller, sometimes gentle, sometimes cruel. Across abandoned highways and crumbled towns, the radiated dust lifts and dances with a soft, crackling hiss, brushing against metal, glass, and rock. At first, it seems like nothing more than a reminder of what the world has lost. But for those who live here, it's something far more unsettling. Travelers pause mid-step, feeling the hairs on their necks rise as the winds seem to murmur their names, to whisper fragments of memories, or even to speak words that shouldn't be possible. Some claim to hear laughter, faint, echoing, and impossible to place. Others hear cries or warnings, a language that feels familiar yet indecipherable. The line between imagination and reality is razor thin. Many survivors wonder if these whispers are the ghosts of the old world, voices trapped in the dust itself, echoing memories of people long gone. Others suspect it's a psychological aftershock, the mind's fragile attempt to fill silence with something known. But then, occasionally, someone insists the voices call out from a specific place, from beyond a ridge or around a ruined building. And when they follow, there is nothing but wind and radiation-streaked soil. The uncertainty gnaws at them, threading fear and curiosity together like roots in concrete. There is no safety here, not in walls, not in silence, and not in the open plains where the wind rules. Walking through these highways, survivors move slowly, senses heightened. Each gust feels like a presence, each swirl of dust a potential message. Families cling to one another. Scouts whisper to keep their fears quiet. Even seasoned scavengers admit to shivering when the wind curls through an empty overpass and the sound cracks like bones breaking. And yet, amidst the tension, there is a strange allure, a reminder that the world is alive in ways humanity cannot fully understand or control. The whispering winds are a haunting symphony of survival, memory, and warning. They are nature reclaiming both voice and power, reminding everyone who dares walk in the open that this is no longer a world where humans decide the rules. Emotionally, this is a landscape of fragile terror and awe. Every gust carries isolation, every murmur carries longing, and every pause in the wind feels like the breath of a world that is still listening, watching, judging. Survivors learn to tread lightly, to respect the invisible forces that speak through dust and shadow, and to survive not just the remnants of humanity, but the subtle intelligence, or at least the intent, of a world that refuses to remain silent. This is Alex Mercer, signing off. If you wander where the wind whispers, listen carefully. Respect what you cannot see. And remember, sometimes the world speaks, and it is better to answer with caution than with defiance. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting beneath a sky that no longer resembles the one we grew up with. 3 years after the world tore itself apart, the nights have changed into something almost celestial, ribbons of green, violet, and electric blue sweeping across the heavens like the earth has learned to breathe light. We call it the luminous night. Some call it beautiful. Others call it a warning. But every survivor agrees, it is nothing like the auroras we once knew. These lights shimmer too low, too bright, too alive, as if the atmosphere itself is burning softly from within. And though it's hard to believe, the air hums under them. A faint vibration you can feel in your ribs if you stand outside long enough. A reminder that beauty isn't always gentle. People gather at windows reinforced with scraps of lead and scavenged glass, watching the sky with a mix of awe and dread. The glow is mesmerizing, almost hypnotic. Colors spill across the ruins like waves, painting broken buildings, fallen bridges, and cracked roads with iridescent brilliance. For a moment, it makes the world look reborn, as if the war never touched it. But we know the truth. Step outside unprotected, and the air stings your skin. Radiation levels spike as the lights intensify, rising with every streak and pulse. The atmosphere flickers like a wounded creature, beautiful but unpredictable. And each night carries a new pattern. No two skies are the same. Each one feels like a message we haven't learned how to read. The animals feel it more than we do. Every night under this shimmering glow, they behave differently, restless, alert, almost supernatural. Wolves prowl the edges of settlements in tight circles, their eyes glowing with reflections of the sky, making them look like creatures carved from pure light. Birds take flight in strange formations, twisting and spiraling with uncanny rhythm, as if following a signal no human can hear. Even the smallest creatures, mice and insects and foxes, move faster, bolder, driven by instincts that have shifted with the world. Predators hunt with eerie coordination. Prey scatter in patterns that seem choreographed. Some survivors swear the animals are learning, evolving under the aurora's glow. Others fear they're being controlled by it. Inside shelters, people speak in hushed voices as the lights wash over the buildings. Children press their hands to the window glass, watching the sky like it's a storybook come alive. Adults keep their distance, remembering the warnings, remembering the strangers who stepped outside just for a moment and didn't make it back. The luminous night teaches emotion in contrasts, beauty paired with danger, wonder intertwined with terror. You want to reach out and touch it. You want to stand beneath it just once, to feel the colors on your skin. But you remember the burn, the sickness, the whispers of those who went out without protection and came back changed, or didn't return at all. And beneath all of that, the world feels aware, as if the sky is watching us, as if the lights are the Earth's expression, its recovery, its mutation, its grief made visible. Some say the auroras are a sign that the planet is healing. Others think they are scars, glowing reminders of what we did. But every night, when the sky ignites in impossible color and the animals stir in their strange rhythms, we are reminded that we no longer understand the rules of this new world. We're living in a place that is rewriting itself, and all we can do is watch from behind glass, suspended between awe and fear. This is Alex Mercer. If you walk beneath the luminous night, take care. Let its beauty touch your heart, but not your skin. And remember, even the sky can change its nature, especially after everything we've done to it. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting from a shelter reinforced with rusted steel and sandbags, listening to the growl of another storm rolling across what used to be the eastern plains. 3 years after the war, the skies have changed into something volatile, unpredictable, something that feels alive in its anger. The returning storms are nothing like the tempests we remember. These are born from a world still wounded, still reshaping itself. Storms that claw across the land, as if trying to scrape away what remains of the old civilization. The first sign is always color. The sky darkens in shades we never had names for, murky greens tinged with bruised purple or sulfur yellow bleeding into ash gray. Survivors have learned to read these colors like ancient astrologers reading constellations. A deep violet stain means fractal lightning is coming, the kind that branches in complex unnatural webs across the clouds before striking the earth in bursts that look almost intelligent. Those bolts leave behind spiraling scorch marks, twisting patterns burned into concrete, as if the sky is etching symbols onto the ground. And then there are the ash cyclones, towering whirlwinds of radioactive dust that sweep across ruined towns like ghostly giants, stripping paint off metal, uprooting weakened buildings, and swallowing entire roads in swirling darkness. Rain is no longer cleansing. It falls in heavy, sizzling drops that burn through fabric, through hair, through skin. Acid rain that leaves pockmarks on concrete and hisses as it hits the ground. Anyone caught outside without proper gear risks burns that scar for life. Some don't survive the exposure at all. The storms rarely warn before they strike. One moment the world is still. The next the wind hits with a force that shakes the bones of every building still standing. Roofs lift like paper. Windows shatter inward. Entire settlements have been erased in a single night, their remains scattered like sand. Communities cope in different ways. Some migrate constantly, following the paths of lower radiation, moving like nomads across broken highways, living out of reinforced vehicles and collapsible shelters. They move with the storms, never ahead, never behind, like herds shadowing a predator. Others choose to fortify instead, transforming old basements and underground parking garages into storm bunkers. Thick walls, triple-layered doors, vents filtered with scavenged charcoal. They watch the horizon every afternoon, scanning for color shifts, for distant spiraling clouds, for the faint electric ripple that signals fractal lightning. Every decision, when to move, when to hide, when to run, is a gamble against the fury of a mutated world. Emotion wears thin here. Endurance becomes not just a necessity, but a way of life. People carry exhaustion in their eyes, yet determination in their shoulders. Children grow up knowing the language of the sky better than their own history. They point out dangerous tints with instinctive precision, shouting warnings that send entire communities scrambling underground. It's strange how quickly humanity adapts under pressure. We learn to survive storms that should have destroyed us. We learn to rebuild, even when the wind tries to knock that hope out of our hands. But beneath the fear, there is something almost sacred about these storms. They remind us that the earth is alive, changing, fierce, that this is a world shaped by our mistakes, but still capable of awe. When a storm passes, the sky often clears into brilliant clarity, shards of stars visible through gaps in the ash clouds, the air calm and crisp after its violent outburst. Survivors step outside with cautious gratitude, feeling the quiet settle like a blessing after a trial endured. We don't know if the storms will ever fade, but we know this. Every time one hits, and we crawl out again and rebuild what was damaged, we are proving that humanity is still here, still fighting, still learning. This is Alex Mercer, signing off as thunder rolls across the horizon. If the sky changes color, run. If the wind stills before the roar, hide. And when the storm passes, remember, endurance is the heartbeat of what remains. This is Alex Mercer, broadcasting with a rare sound behind me. Wind moving through grass. Actual grass. I'm somewhere near the outskirts of what survivors call an Eden zone, one of the elusive pockets of land where the planet seems to be healing faster than we ever imagined it could. These sanctuaries are scattered irregularly across the continent, tiny miracles stitched into a broken tapestry. No one knows exactly why these places recover. Maybe the wind currents spared them from the worst fallout. Maybe the soil composition shields them. Or maybe the earth is simply choosing its own places to start again. The transformation is stunning. Step past the boundary, an invisible line you feel more than see, and the air shifts. Radiation meters fall from a steady buzz to almost silence. The ground softens. Grass pushes through the ashen crust, stubborn and green. Trees grow strange but strong, their leaves broader, their bark denser, as if nature has learned to armor itself. Birds return in flocks, settling in these pockets like they remember something we forgot. Even the animals, once scattered and mutated, gathered here with cautious instinct. Fawns walking on trembling legs, foxes darting through underbrush, wolves watching from a distance with eyes no longer clouded by sickness. For a moment, just a moment, it feels like the old world is breathing again. But sanctuaries this precious rarely remain peaceful. Word travels fast in a dead world. Survivors whisper about them around campfires or trade rumors at scavenger outposts. A valley where clean water flows. A hill where flowers open in the morning light. A forest so quiet, so alive that stepping into it feels like walking into a memory of Earth before the war. People pack their belongings and walk for weeks, sometimes months, clinging to the hope that they can reach one of these Edens before someone else does. And usually, someone else already has. Some sanctuaries are guarded by factions that believe they alone deserve paradise. They build barricades from fallen logs and salvaged metal, erect warning signs, and declare their piece of heaven off limits. They see themselves as stewards, protectors, chosen people safeguarding the future. Others are less noble, raider groups who use the fertile land as leverage, trading food and clean water at prices that drive entire communities into debt. Efforts to negotiate often turn violent. There are graves at the borders of every Eden, reminders that even paradise casts a shadow. Then there are sanctuaries claimed not by humans, but by nature itself. Some have grown too wild, too fast. Vines twist over sunken ruins. Roots crack open old roads. Migrated animals establish territories that humans enter only at great risk. These Edens remind us that the planet may recover without us, that we might not be part of the long-term picture at all. But the hardest question, the question every survivor asks quietly in the dark, is this: who deserves to live in these places? Is paradise something to be earned, shared, protected? Or have we, after everything we've done to this world, lost the right to step into these green havens at all? Communities debate these questions endlessly. Do we distribute access fairly, rotate settlements, let families with children go first? Or do we secure the land for research, hoping to replicate whatever miracle is happening here? Hope is complicated. When there isn't enough to go around, hope starts to cut like a blade. These sanctuaries are proof that the earth can recover, yet they also force us to confront our own nature, our longing, our desperation, and the moral cracks that widen when survival is on the line. People cry when they first see an Eden, not because it's beautiful, but because it's finite. I don't know how long this sanctuary will last. Some fade after a season, swallowed again by dust or overtaken by the returning storms. Others endure for years, becoming the backbone of entire regions. But standing here listening to leaves rustle in a clean breeze, it's impossible not to feel a spark of hope flicker inside me. A fragile, trembling hope that perhaps one day the world won't be defined by radiation or ruin, but by rebirth. This is Alex Mercer, signing off from the edge of paradise. May we learn not just to find these sanctuaries, but to deserve them. If this message reaches you, even through the noise, remember that the world has changed in ways we can't undo. But as long as you're breathing, as long as you're fighting, you're part of what comes next. Trust no storm, trust no silence, and trust your instincts more than the ruins around you. This is Alex Mercer, shutting down the transmitter. Stay hidden, stay moving, and if the winds start whispering, don't listen too long.